Hey, welcome back to 535. I'm Paul Kane of Notice. I am joined here by the distinguished gentleman from Massachusetts, Worcester, as they like to say.
You got it right.
I got it right? Was the accent decent?
Yeah. I love when people call my office to complain and they say they're from Worcester.
Ah.
That gives it away.
Out of towners. First elected in 1996.
Correct.
So long ago that people don't even remember that you beat a Republican.
I did.
There were two Republicans in the Massachusetts delegation from the 94 wave.
I beat a guy named Peter Blute, who was a two-term Republican. This is when Newt Gingrich was Speaker, and my tagline was, if you wouldn't vote for Newt, why would you vote for Blute?
That was, I had just got here as a young cub reporter, and there were two Peters from Massachusetts. The other was
Peter Torkelson.
Torkelson, yeah.
It doesn't rhyme with Newt, so I don't know what I would have done if I ran against that.
No, okay. Mr. McGovern has been the top Democrat on the House Rules Committee since what year?
Since like 2000. Well, since I can't remember now. When Louis Slaughter passed away. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a little less than 10 years.
Yeah.
He's been on the committee for.
It was 2001.
Since 2001. But we'll get to that committee.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't appreciate about you, because so much of your focus is on the Rules Committee and it's, somewhat arcane stuff, is you have a personal passion project for policy. Hunger, nutrition, for the poor working class people. Tell me about how did you make that your thing? How did that start?
Well, when I was in college, I worked my way through college working for George McGovern, no relation, in South Dakota, and that was one of his passions. But then when I got elected to Congress, I began to meet people who were having trouble affording food. And I volunteered at a food pantry, and I talked to the people who came in, and they defied stereotype. So there were people who had no jobs, but then there were people who were working full-time and having trouble putting together a budget to provide enough food for themselves and their families. And I thought that was wrong. We live in the richest country in the history of the world, and there are 48 million of our fellow citizens who are hungry or food insecure. We should be ashamed of that. And hunger is a political condition. And by that I mean we have the money. I mean, we know what to do. What we lack is the political will. And I've been trying to get the political will mustered here where we would focus on that issue and end it once and for all.
What is your most important policy change that you are trying to make right now, and how would that directly impact the 48 million?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things we need to do, but one of the things that I just recently did is introduce legislation in the House. Bernie Sanders did it in the Senate to call for universal school meals in our schools and to increase the reimbursement rate for school meals. Because I want to make sure kids not only have access to food, but we want to make sure it's nutritious food. And one of the things that my Republican colleagues seem to miss is that if you were to do what I'm telling you to do, it costs a little bit of money up front, but it saves you a boatload of money in the long term. My sisters are school teachers. Kids come to school hungry, they don't learn. If you don't have access to good food, you end up with long-term health conditions that are very, very costly. I taught in an emergency room at a hospital in my district, and a doctor introduced me to a woman who was there because she's taking her medication on an empty stomach. She couldn't afford her medication and an adequate diet. I mean, this is the United States of America.
Sort of ethnic, racial data on this. If you're talking about 48 million people, I assume that the numbers would go in every direction in terms of, poor working class white people, Black, Latino,
I mean, the majority of people,
America.
The majority of people on food stamps, look like you or me. So when you hear people say that this is a program that mostly caters to minority populations, that's just a lie. It's it's white people mostly, and it's a lot of working people. So a lot of the people on the program are working, sometimes working multiple jobs, and they still don't earn enough to be able to put groceries in the fridge, and I think that's wrong.
Do Republicans, are there some Republicans anyway who sort of understand this, and we've seen changing political coalitions in the last 10 to 15 years. And, you know, the white working class voters tend to now vote Republican, and especially if they are in more rural, ex-urban areas, they're Republicans, and that's where you're saying almost a majority of the recipients of federal food benefits are coming from. So are there some Republicans that you have been able to sort of make some odd coalitions with on this?
But you're right, the stereotype is this is an urban issue, and that's just not true. It's also very much a rural issue. And over the years, I've worked with people like Senator Bob Dole and Senator Elizabeth Dole, who have been were really good on this. I'm looking for the Bob Doles and the Elizabeth Doles right now. I mean, I have a lot of colleagues that I work with from the Midwest, Republicans, who say that they care deeply about this issue and they don't want to cut nutrition programs, and yet when push comes to shove, they vote to cut the nutrition programs. I mean, we have a farm bill that maintains close to $200 billion with a B, $billion cuts to the SNAP program. I mean, I find that immoral. And I have colleagues on the Agriculture Committee, I also serve on that committee, who know better, and they go along to get along. This is what Trump asked them to do, and they're doing it. But they are hurting their constituents.
This is something that was actually enacted last year, right?
In the big ugly bill, and we tried to fix it in the farm bill that came out of the House. And not only did they not fix it, they won't even allow us to offer an amendment to fix it.
Explain what those cuts actually are doing in day. Are they taken effect yet? Are people feeling the impact already with those?
So the worst of the cuts are going to take effect next year. But some of the changes in the program that they made have already taken effect. And millions of people across this country have lost their benefits. You know, I mean, so the new work requirements, new red tape, new reporting requirements, all that stuff, you know, have started to come into place, and people are now losing their benefits. Millions of people have lost their benefits. And that's before we get to the big $200 billion cut that's going to hit next year, and that's going to be devastating. Look, if you're a kid who's hungry, you can't learn at school. If you're a senior citizen who can't afford your groceries, you're taking your medication on an empty stomach. If you're a worker who is hungry, you are less productive in the workplace. It is so short-sighted and so stupid for us not to address this issue. You know, I'm at a loss for words, but this is a fixable problem.
Okay, you've got the Universal School Meals Program Act, the Medical Foods and Formulas Access Act.
Food is medicine.
So, but you're talking about Bernie Sanders as your Senate co-sponsor. Is he working to sort of build that coalition to find the Bob Doles of the Senate?
Yeah.
Because if things go great for you, for Democrats, even if you win back the House majority and eke out a Senate majority, you still got to get over a filibuster and Trump's signature.
Yeah.
So what type of coalitions are they trying to get over there to make sure you can actually do this?
Well, Trump needs some things too, right? So, I mean, if we can win back the House and or the Senate or both, I think we have some bargaining ability here. But, you know, we continue to work. I continue to reach out to Republicans. I continue to try to plead with them, especially those who know better, you know, to join with us. By the way, you know, if I did a quiz of members of Congress about what the average SNAP benefit was, the overwhelming majority would fail. I mean, people don't even know. The average benefit is about $2 per person per meal. I can't even buy a cup of coffee in this building for $2. And that's what it is. That's the overly generous benefit that they rail about on the House floor and on the Senate floor. But we both are trying to reach out to Republicans to get them to join with us, you know, on some of this legislation. And I think maybe if the political climate changes here a little bit, if the leadership changes, we're in a different situation.
Okay, next year, if you are in the majority on this policy front, do you think Donald Trump understands his coalition? And do you think on something like this, he might be willing to cut a deal to, you know, these are his voters?
Well, I would like to.
Or, are, you know, there are going to be some that say, don't give any victories to Trump. Don't give any victories that J.D. Vance, who wants to look like a populist, is going to care about. Are you going to be willing to try and cut some deals on these policies?
I'm willing to work with anyone. Look, Trump and I don't share the same values. I mean, his focus is on tax cuts for billionaires and multimillionaires. That's where his energy goes. My energy is going to go on to try to end hunger in this country. And so, look, if we're in control, we have some power, and we also have the ability to schedule things. Again, I would like to force people to vote on some of this stuff, because I think maybe we can get a few Republicans to join with us, and reinstating the cuts to SNAP and improving the quality of meals that we give our kids at school, and expanding school meals to be universal for everybody. I mean, I don't know how you can learn if you're hungry. And if we want to see a bright future in this country, we need a well-educated workforce, and that begins, at the earliest levels in school. And people need to eat in order to learn.
Is there something about labels and acronyms that makes government inaccessible? I know what you mean by SNAP, right. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. People used to just say food stamps. That both became kind of pejorative and also out of date, because most people are getting it on their phones anyway, or from an app. Is there some way to create names that are more accessible for the average voter to understand? Because most voters, if you're in Worcester, you're probably not going to SNAP. What is that?
No,
is that little app that kids use?
And that's a good point that you raised. But here's the problem. I think it goes deeper than just the name, right? It is that we have people who intentionally, try to demonize programs that help the most vulnerable in this country. I mean, that they run for office, demonizing these programs. I mean, I was at a Dunkin' Donuts, and a guy was, yelling to a group of friends about how everybody on SNAP is an illegal immigrant. And I, got my coffee and went over, and I said to him, I couldn't help but overhear you, but that's just not true. In fact, if you're an undocumented immigrant, you're not entitled to SNAP. In fact, most legal immigrants are not entitled to SNAP. The people on SNAP are people like us, people who look like us. And the increasing number of people on SNAP are working people. They're doing everything right, and you're here demonizing a program that provides them about $6 a day. That's it. I mean, come on. I mean, what the hell's wrong with this country that we cannot do more to end hunger? We're the United States of America.
Can your party make the case connecting this to the affordability agenda that everybody talks about?
Yes. Food's too damn expensive. I mean, a pound of beef right now is more expensive than the federal minimum wage. I mean, and by the way, if you want to talk about controlling healthcare costs, this is the way to do it. Make sure people have enough to eat. Make sure people have access to nutritious food. I have a bill on medically tailored meals. There ought to be food prescriptions. We ought to be encouraging our hospitals and our health centers to have food pantries and to integrate nutrition with their treatment. That's how you save money. Again, we're the best country in the world to live in if you need quadruple bypass surgery. We're not so good at preventing you from getting there. And what we need to do is kind of rethink our healthcare system, focus more on prevention, and that will be better for people. It'll also save us a boatload of money.
All right. Your other passion is the House Rules Committee. There are some big fans of that committee. I once got yelled at by your staff director for, I think I called it obscure. Secretly powerful. Why did you want to, I know you worked for Joe Moakley, who was a longtime chair of the committee in the 80s and 90s. Why did you want to be on that committee? And explain its power.
Well, in 2001, when Moakley was diagnosed with incurable cancer and told he had 3 months to live, he called me into his office and said, I need you to get on the Rules Committee. And I was like, let me think about it. He goes, no, you need to be on the Rules Committee. We need somebody from Massachusetts on the Rules Committee. It's the most powerful committee in the Congress. It's the oldest committee in Congress. You can get things done on any issue in this committee, so don't screw it up. And at the time, Dick Gephardt was the Democratic leader, had promised the next opening to somebody else. And Moakley went to Gephardt and said, Dick, I'm dying. And he said, what can I do for you? He said, anything. He said, put McGovern on the Rules Committee. But then Gephardt came to me and said he had promised it to Elsie Hastings. And he said, would you let me put Elsie on before you? There'll be another opening. And I said, yeah, but as long as I have seniority over Elsie when I go on the committee. And he agreed to that deal. But it was the best decision I ever made in my life, because quite frankly, it is a place where you can have your fingers on every issue. And I've been able to help my district and help causes that I care about. And when I was the chairman of that committee, we actually moved a bill forward to create a White House conference on hunger, nutrition, and health, which was held in the Biden administration. It was very, very consequential. And I would like to be chair again, so I can, again, move the issues that I care deeply about forward.
One of the things about the Rules Committee chair is that whoever has the majority, the minority complains vigorously that the chair is not allowing an open house, and that they put out what we call closed rules, where there are just not a lot of amendments or zero amendments allowed on legislation. I think by your own staff's estimate, you only made in order 50% of amendments during the last Congress. Now, the Republicans so far have been more.
90% of Democratic amendments blocked, 82% of bipartisan amendments blocked, 70% of Republican amendments blocked. Look, the Rules Committee has become a place where democracy goes to die. I mean, consequential bills are coming to the House floor, and the Republicans are shutting everything down, so you can't offer an amendment, you can't change anything, you can't put in a comma across the T. And you know, when I was chair, I tried to open things up. I tried to reverse what the Republicans had done prior to me, and we got over half of the amendments offered were made in order. And I went out of my way to try to make Republican amendments in order, even at the protest of some of my Democratic colleagues. But I really think this place should be a deliberative body. We ought to not be afraid to debate. And if I get the chance to be chairman again, I'm going to try to reverse, the direction the Rules Committee has gone in under Republicans.
What are some of the things that you would like to do tangibly if you folks take the majority? I know there are several of you that are working on this, ranking member types like Joe Morelli from House Admin, Joe Neguse, your cohort on the Rules Committee, yourself. What are some of the things that could be in a, quote, reform agenda that you would try to push?
Well, clearly, we need to focus in on ethics and corruption, and I'm working with, Morelli and Neguse and others to figure out, what direction we should move in. But when I was chair, I made some reforms, like, for example, we called it the McGovern rule. Even the Republicans called it the McGovern rule, where you can't bring a bill to the floor unless it's gone through committees of jurisdiction. So these idea that out of the blue, a bill mysteriously appears, and then next thing we're on the floor and there's been no review by the committee of jurisdiction. We need to go back to empowering committees. I also had a 72-hour rule, which was that you don't bring any bills to the floor unless you have had at least 72 hours to look at it. And I also want to open.
Republicans have some version.
Yeah, but they don't always adhere to it, and anytime they want to, follow my lead, I'm only too happy to do that. But I also want the Rules Committee to be a place where people can come and have at least a chance of having their ideas be taken seriously and having the ability to be able to debate those ideas on the House floor. This Congress under Republican leadership is like the Russian Duma. I mean, we're a legislative body in name only. I mean, we're not legislating when you're shoving, consequential legislation down people's throats and saying, take it or leave it. And the Rules Committee can change that. I think the Rules Committee can also be a place where, we can better promote civility, which is sorely lacking in this chamber right now.
All right, couple of these 1 minute, 5:35 1-minute questions. These are really quick.
Rise with the intention of disrupting the normal business.
I ask unanimous consent.
I ask unanimous consent.
The senator from Nebraska is recognized.
The gentlelady is recognized.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Who's the smartest member of Congress?
You know, I mean, Joe Neguse, Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, we have a lot of smart members of Congress.
Who's your favorite person on the other side of the aisle?
If I did that, they'd probably lose their election.
Former Republican.
Jackie Walorski, the late Jackie Walorski, we worked together on hunger issues. You know, I did have a chance to work with both Senator Doles. You know, I mean, there are a lot of Republicans that I actually like. I'm disappointed in them right now, but we have a cordial relationship and a good relationship with a lot of them.
What's your favorite phrase uttered here that you never hear back in your district?
I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks. I yield back my time.
All right, you're going to yield back your time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up later, a discussion with one of our favorite Hill reporters about what was actually accomplished this week. We'll be right back, 5:35.